The blood pooling across the sterile white floor of St. Catherine's Trauma Center didn't belong to a patient. And the woman standing over the convulsing body, her weathered hands moving with surgical precision as she drove a scalpel blade into flesh, wasn't a surgeon. The emergency room staff watched in frozen horror as Maya Chan, the 52-year-old hospital janitor with the pronounced limp and the perpetually quiet demeanor, carved through skin and muscle with the cold efficiency of someone who had done this before. Many times, under much worse conditions. The monitor's flatline scream pierced the air. Maya didn't flinch. Her fingers found the femoral artery before the first drop of blood hit the tile. 6 hours earlier, Maya Chun pushed her industrial cleaning cart down the polished corridor of St. Catherine's Trauma Center, the rhythmic thump drag of her left leg marking each step. Her reflection in the trophy case glass showed what everyone else saw. A small Asian woman in faded blue scrubs, graying hair pulled back in a tight bun, shoulders slightly hunched. Ordinary. Forgettable. Exactly what she needed them to see. The morning shift buzzed around her like she was furniture. Nurses rushed past without acknowledgement. Orderlies bumped her cart without apology. Maya had perfected the art of invisibility over the past 18 months, becoming part of the hospital's background noise, just another member of the custodial staff that people looked through rather than at. The smell of industrial disinfectant mixed with the underlying copper tang of blood that never quite left the trauma wing. Maya's nose had been trained to identify 11 different accelerants and 4 types of explosive compounds, but here she focused on bleach concentrations and proper sanitization protocols. It was safer that way. Dr. Richard Thornton's voice cut through the ambient noise like a scalpel through flesh. Someone want to explain why the floors in Bay 3 still look like a crime scene? Where's our illustrious cleaning crew? Maya kept her head down, continuing to wipe the nurse's station counter with methodical strokes. Left to right. Overlapping passes. The same muscle memory that had once cleared rooms in Fallujah now cleaned hospital corridors in downtown Portland. Thornton's Italian leather shoes clicked closer. He was a tall man, 6'3", with the kind of aristocratic features that belonged on currency. His white coat was pristine, his surgical scrubs pressed with hospital corners sharp enough to cut paper. He wore his credentials like armor. Johns Hopkins Medical School, Chief of Trauma Surgery at 38, published in every major journal. The walls of his office held framed articles calling him the miracle worker of St. Catherine's. Maya had known men like Thornton before. Different uniforms, same superiority complex. You, janitor. Thornton's finger jabbed toward her without making eye contact. Bay 3. Now, I have a congressman coming in 20 minutes for a photo opportunity, and I need that floor spotless. Yes, doctor. Maya's voice came out soft, accented with the slight rasp of someone who didn't speak much anymore. She gathered her supplies, the cart's wheels squeaking as she turned. Behind her, she heard Thornton's stage whisper to the resident beside him. I swear, they send us the bottom of the barrel for custodial. Look at her, can barely walk. Probably can't even read the chemical labels. But hey, cheap labor, right? The resident's uncomfortable laugh followed Maya down the hallway. Her left hand tightened on the cart handle, knuckles whitening. Not from anger. From the phantom sensation of an M4 carbine that hadn't been in her hands for 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. She counted. She always counted. The limp wasn't fake. Shrapnel from an IED outside Kandahar had turned her left knee into a puzzle of surgical steel and scar tissue. But it had also made her invisible in a way that her previous life never allowed. Senior Chief Petty Officer Maya Chun, call sign Valkyrie, SEAL Team 3, had once commanded the respect of the deadliest operators in the U.S. military. Now she mopped floors and swallowed insults from men who had never seen real trauma. She preferred it that way. The afternoon shift change brought fresh humiliation. Maya was restocking supply closet 7 when she heard voices in the corridor. Thornton again, this time with hospital administrator Patricia Voss. Their footsteps paused outside the closet door. I'm telling you, Patricia, we need to revisit our custodial contracts, Thornton said. The quality has declined significantly. That Chin woman, for instance. Maya's been here 18 months without incident, Voss countered, though her tone lacked conviction. She's a liability. That limp of hers is a safety hazard. What if she falls carrying biohazard materials? What if she can't respond quickly enough in an emergency? We're a trauma center, for God's sake. Maya's hand stilled on a box of surgical gloves. The small closet suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in with familiar pressure. Her therapist called it hypervigilance. Maya called it Tuesday. I'll review her file, Voss said. If there are legitimate concerns, make it happen. I want her gone by month's end. Replace her with someone who can actually do the job properly. Their footsteps faded. Maya stood motionless in the semi-darkness, surrounded by gauze and saline bags and the antiseptic smell that never quite masked the underlying scent of blood. Her breathing had shifted without conscious thought. Slow, measured, the tactical breathing pattern drilled into her through 2 decades of military service. 4 counts in, hold 4, 4 counts out, hold 4. The scars on her left shoulder blade, the ones from the building collapse in Mosul that killed 3 of her team, began to itch. Phantom pain, phantom memories, phantom life. She had come to St. Catherine's because she needed the job, yes, but also because she needed the anonymity. After 23 years in the SEALs, after 12 combat deployments, after becoming the first woman to earn the Trident and serve in direct action roles, Maya had walked away. The nightmares had made that choice for her. The faces of the men she'd killed, the teammates she'd lost, the civilians she couldn't save, they all visited her in the dark hours. The therapist at the VA said she needed to process her trauma in a safe environment. So she'd chosen a hospital, chosen a role where she could help without hurting, chosen invisibility over recognition. But now Thornton wanted to take even that away. Maya finished restocking the closet with mechanical precision, each item placed exactly where it belonged. Order from chaos. It was all she had left. As she emerged back into the fluorescent glare of the corridor, she caught her reflection in the glass partition. For just a moment, she saw someone else looking back, a woman in desert camouflage with captain's bars, eyes hard as flint, jaw set with the absolute confidence of someone who had stared death in the face and made it blink first. Then she blinked, and it was just Maya again. Small, limping, invisible, exactly as it should be. The evening shift brought a different kind of tension. Maya was cleaning the staff break room when the television mounted in the corner cut from a sitcom rerun to breaking news. She paused, mop in hand. As the Chiron scrolled across the bottom of the screen, developing situation, military convoy ambushed near Jordan border. The reporter's voice filtered through the room's ambient noise. Pentagon sources confirm multiple casualties in what appears to be a coordinated attack on a special operations convoy. Details remain classified, but sources indicate at least one critically wounded operator is being medevaced to an undisclosed location. Maya's grip tightened on the mop handle. She knew that language. Undisclosed location meant stateside. Critically wounded operator meant someone who couldn't be treated at Ramstein or Landstuhl. Someone important enough or damaged enough to need the absolute best care available. Someone coming here. St. Catherine's Trauma Center was one of only 7 civilian hospitals in the country with the clearance and capability to handle classified military medical cases. Maya had seen the secure wing on the 4th floor during her orientation, but it had been empty for the entire 18 months she'd worked here. Until now, the hospital's PA system crackled to life. All senior trauma staff to conference room 3. Code Silver Protocol. Repeat, Code Silver Protocol. Code Silver. High-value patient incoming. Maximum security measures. Maya returned to mopping, but her senses had shifted into a different register. She cataloged everything with tactical precision. 3 exits from the break room. 2 clear lines of sight to the corridor. The slight ozone smell from the television's aging electronics. The barely perceptible vibration through the floor that meant the helipad was being prepped on the roof. 20 years of training didn't just disappear because you traded your rifle for a mop bucket. 40 minutes later, the rhythm of the hospital changed. Maya felt it before she saw it. The subtle shift in energy that meant something significant was happening. She was restocking the supply cart on the 3rd floor when the first security personnel appeared, earpieces visible, hands resting casually near concealed weapons. Not hospital security. Federal agents. Maybe military police. Then came the sound she knew better than her own heartbeat. The distinctive thwop 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 of military helicopter rotors. Not the commercial medevac birds that landed here daily, but the deeper, heavier beat of a Black Hawk or maybe a Pave Hawk. Maya continued her work, head down, but her internal operator was fully awake now. She mapped exit routes, identified potential cover positions, assessed threat vectors. All unconscious, all unnecessary, all impossible to stop. The helicopter's rotor wash rattled the windows as it settled on the roof. Maya was close enough to the stairwell to hear the controlled chaos of the transport, the rapid footfalls of medical personnel, the clipped military cadence of status reports, the mechanical beeping of portable monitors. Then Dr. Thornton's voice cut through the commotion, loud and commanding. "Clear a path. I need the primary trauma bay prepped now. Where's my surgical team?" Maya risked a glance toward the commotion. Through the small window in the stairwell door, she caught a fragment of the scene. Uniformed military personnel surrounding a gurney, a figure wrapped in blood-soaked tactical gear, and Thornton striding alongside with the confidence of a man who had never doubted his own competence. Something cold settled in Maya's stomach. She had seen enough battlefield trauma to recognize the signs. The way the escort team moved with barely controlled urgency, the pallor visible even through combat dirt, the particular angle of the four lines that meant they were fighting to maintain blood pressure. This operator was dying. And Maya knew, with the absolute certainty that came from 2 decades of war, that Thornton was not the man to save him. Maya shouldn't have been anywhere near the secure trauma bay. But the 4th floor's regular custodian had called in sick, and someone needed to sanitize the observation corridor before the VIPs arrived. So Maya found herself 30 feet from the primary surgical suite, close enough to see everything through the reinforced glass, invisible as always in her blue scrubs and cleaning cart. The patient on the table wore the remnants of what had been high-end tactical gear, multicam fatigues shredded by shrapnel, a plate carrier still strapped to his chest despite the massive trauma to his lower abdomen. His face was covered in combat dirt and dried blood, but Maya could see he was young, maybe 28, with the lean build of someone who lived in the gym and the field. The monitors told the story: blood pressure 80/50 and dropping, heart rate 140, oxygen saturation 88%, hemorrhagic shock, multiple GSWs to the abdomen and pelvis, femoral arterial injury. He was bleeding out internally, and the clock was running. Maya had seen this exact scenario in a field hospital outside Kandahar. She'd been the one to clamp the femoral before the surgeon could even scrub in. The operator had lived. Dr. Thornton stood at the head of the table, barking orders with theatrical authority. "Get me 4 units of Oneg now. Someone get this armor off him. Where's my surgical team?" But his hands weren't moving. He was directing, not doing. And Maya could see what he couldn't, or wouldn't acknowledge. The blood pooling under the patient's lower back meant retroperitoneal hemorrhage. The slight distension of the abdomen meant internal bleeding that would kill him in minutes without immediate surgical intervention. The surgical resident was struggling with the tactical vest, fumbling with the quick-release mechanism that any operator could open in the dark. Precious seconds bled away. BPs dropping. A nurse's voice carried panic. 70/45. Increase the flow on those IVs. Thornton commanded. "Where are my units of blood?" Maya watched from the corridor, her hands gripping the cleaning cart so tightly her knuckles went white. "Not your problem. Not your world anymore." You walked away. But the monitor's steady decline told a different story. 65/40. 60/38. The vest finally came free, and Maya saw the full extent of the damage. 3 entry wounds across the lower abdomen, 1 high on the right thigh. The GSW to the thigh was the killer, femoral arterial injury, still bleeding despite the hasty tourniquet someone had applied in the field. Thornton was calling for a surgical tray, but he was going about it all wrong. You didn't have time for proper surgical protocols when someone was exsanguinating on your table. You needed to get proximal control of that artery now, or the patient would code before you ever got him to the OR. The flatline scream of the cardiac monitor cut through the chaos. "He's coding." The nurse's voice pitched higher. "Asystole. Start compressions." Thornton moved to the side of the table, but his movements were uncertain. This wasn't a controlled surgery. This was battlefield medicine, and he was out of his element. Maya's left hand released the cleaning cart. Her right hand was already moving to the door handle before her conscious mind caught up. She was through the door and at the table before anyone registered her presence. "Get out of here." Thornton's voice cracked like a whip. Security. Maya didn't respond. Her hands were already on the patient's thigh, fingers finding the pressure point 2 inches above the wound. She pressed down with precise force, feeling for the femoral pulse against her fingertips. There. Faint but present. I said get out. Thornton grabbed her shoulder. Maya shrugged him off without looking, her attention locked on the patient. The voice that came out of her mouth wasn't the soft, accented tone of Maya, Chun the janitor. It was the command voice of Senior Chief Petty Officer Chun, the voice that had ordered men into kill zones and extracted them alive. Scalpel. Now. The surgical resident, stunned by the transformation, placed the instrument in her outstretched left hand. Maya didn't pause to explain. She made a 4-inch incision above the wound site with absolute precision, cutting through skin and fascia to expose the femoral artery. What the hell do you think you're? Thornton started. Vascular clamp. Maya's hand was already extended. When no one moved, she looked up, and for the first time, the surgical team saw her eyes. Not the downcast gaze of the meek janitor, but the cold, focused stare of someone who had performed this exact procedure in a sandstorm with mortar rounds landing 50 meters away. The resident placed the clamp in her hand. Maya's fingers worked with the muscle memory of 2 decades. She isolated the artery, placed the clamp with perfect placement, and secured it. The hemorrhage stopped. The blood pressure monitor, which had been screaming its descent toward 0, stabilized. Resume compressions, Maya said, her voice calm now, almost gentle. 30-2. Maintain head tilt. Watch the airway. The nurse, moving on autopilot, followed the command. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Maya's hands moved to the patient's neck, finding the carotid pulse. Weak but present. She reached for the stethoscope hanging from the resident's neck, taking it without asking, and listened to the chest. Diminished breath sounds on the right. Tension pneumothorax. He needs a needle decompression, right side, second intercostal space, midclavicular line. Maya looked at Thornton directly. Do you want to do it, or should I? The room had gone silent except for the mechanical rhythm of chest compressions and the steady beep of monitors. Everyone was staring at the small Asian woman with the limp who had just performed emergency vascular surgery with the casual competence of a combat surgeon. Thornton's face had gone from red to white. His mouth opened and closed without sound. 14-gauge needle, Maya said to the surgical tray. Now, please. The resident handed it over. Maya palpated the patient's chest, found the landmark, and inserted the needle with a practiced motion. The rush of air confirmed the diagnosis. The patient's oxygen saturation immediately began to climb. The cardiac monitor chirped. A rhythm appeared. Weak, irregular, but present. We have a pulse. The nurse's voice cracked with emotion. Maya stepped back from the table, her hands still steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. The transformation reversed as quickly as it had come, shoulders hunching slightly, eyes dropping to the floor. But the illusion was broken. Everyone in that room had seen what she could do. Everyone had seen who she really was. Get him to the OR, Maya said quietly. He needs exploratory laparotomy for the abdominal GSWs and vascular repair on that femoral. The clamp bought you time, but not much. She turned to leave, but Thornton's voice stopped her. You? Who the hell are you? Maya looked back over her shoulder. The ghost of her old self flickered in her eyes. No one important, doctor. Just the janitor. Maya made it exactly 47 steps before the security guards caught up with her. Ma'am, we need you to come with us. They weren't rough, but they weren't asking either. 2 hospital security personnel, hands on her elbows, guiding her toward the administrative wing. She didn't resist. What was the point? She'd known this moment was coming from the second she'd walked through that trauma bay door. Some part of her had been waiting for it since the day she'd hung up her uniform. They put her in a small conference room with institutional beige walls and uncomfortable chairs. The kind of room where bad news got delivered. Maya had been in rooms like this before, getting debriefed after operations, learning about casualties, signing non-disclosure agreements that would follow her to the grave. Administrator Voss arrived first, her expression unreadable. Then Thornton, still in his surgical scrubs, face flushed with what looked like anger, but might have been fear. Finally, 2 men in dark suits with military haircuts and the kind of silent competence that screamed federal agents. Ms. Chun, Voss began, her voice tight. What you did was completely inappropriate. You're not medical personnel. You have no authority to. She saved his life. The words came from one of the suited men. He had gray temples and the weathered face of someone who'd spent time in the sandbox. His credentials, when he pulled them out, read Defense Intelligence Agency. The operator you just stabilized is Lieutenant Marcus Chun, SEAL Team 3. He's also my nephew. The name hit Maya like a fist to the chest. Chun. Same as her. But it had to be a coincidence. She'd left the SEALs 3 years ago, before this kid would have even made it through BUD/S. The DI agent looked at her with eyes that saw too much. I was in the observation area. I saw what you did. That wasn't first aid. That was level 1 trauma protocol, executed perfectly under pressure. So I'm going to ask you the same question Dr. Thornton did. Who the hell are you? Maya met his gaze for a long moment. Then she looked down at her hands, the hands that had just performed emergency surgery, that had held rifles and launched grenades and zipped body bags. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. My name is Maya Chun, Senior Chief Petty Officer, retired. SEAL Team 3, SEAL Team 3, Alpha Platoon. Service number, Valkyrie. The DI agent's eyes widened. Holy shit. You're Valkyrie. The room went absolutely still. What's Valkyrie? Thornton demanded. What is this? The DI agent ignored him, his attention locked on Maya. We thought you dropped off the grid. Retired medical. PTSD discharge. But you're here, working as a janitor. Needed the job, Maya said simply. Needed the quiet. Someone explain what's happening, Voss said, her administrator's need for control reasserting itself. What is Valkyrie? The DI agent pulled out his phone, made a call. This is Agent Morrison, credentials 77 Alpha. I need authorization to access a classified personnel file. Name, Maya Chun. Service branch, Army SEALs. Authorization code. While he talked, Maya sat quietly, feeling the weight of her past settling back onto her shoulders like the tactical vest she used to wear. She'd known this peace couldn't last. Nothing good ever did. Morrison hung up and looked at the room. What I'm about to tell you is classified, but given the circumstances. Senior Chief Petty Officer Maya Chun served 23 years in Naval Special Warfare. 12 combat deployments. First woman to earn the SEAL Trident and serve in direct action roles with SEAL Team 3. Call sign Valkyrie. 3 silver stars, 2 bronze stars with Valor, Purple Heart with 3 oak leaf clusters. Combat medic qualified, advanced tactical training, fluent in 4 languages. He paused, and his voice dropped. She's personally credited with saving the lives of 47 operators in the field, and she's killed more enemy combatants than most entire platoons. Thornton's face had gone pale. Voss looked like she'd been struck. Maya just stared at her hands. You're firing her? Morrison's voice carried an edge of disbelief. You were going to fire Valkyrie for having a limp? I didn't know, Thornton started. Clearly, Morrison's tone could have frozen helium. Before anyone could respond, the conference room door burst open. The hospital security guard who stumbled through the door had blood on his uniform and terror in his eyes. Armed intruders, 4th floor. Multiple hostiles. They're asking for, he looked at Maya. They're asking for the wounded operator. Morrison's hand went to his concealed weapon. How many? 4 or maybe 5. Military gear. They came up the service stairs, bypassed security. They knew exactly where to go. Maya was already moving. The transformation was instantaneous this time. No hesitation, no attempt to hide what she was. She crossed to the window and looked down at the street below. 2 black SUVs, engines running. No plates. Escape vehicles. They're here to finish the job, she said, her voice completely calm. The ambush didn't kill Lieutenant Chun, so they're going to make sure he doesn't survive to identify them. We need to evacuate the floor, Voss said, her administrator's mind racing. Get patients to safety. No time. Maya's tactical mind was already 3 steps ahead. 4th floor has 12 patients, including Lieutenant Chun in post-op recovery. You start evacuating, they'll hear it and accelerate their timeline. We need to neutralize the threat first, then evacuate. Thornton's voice pitched high. You're going to fight them? You're a 52-year-old woman with a limp. Maya looked at him, and in that moment, he saw Valkyrie. Not the janitor. Not the victim of his contempt. The woman who had walked through hellfire and brought warriors home alive. Stay here, she said to the room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but federal agents or military personnel. Morrison pulled his service weapon. I'm coming with you. Maya nodded. Can you shoot? Marine Force Recon before DA. Good enough. Maya moved to the door. Her limp was still present, but it no longer looked like weakness. It looked like a battle scar worn with pride. Standard clearing pattern. I'll take point. They moved into the corridor, and Maya's mind shifted into the combat mode she'd thought she'd left behind forever. The hospital transformed into a battlefield, every corner a potential ambush point, every room a sector to clear, every sound a tactical input. The sounds of violence echoed from the fourth floor above them. Gunfire. Screaming. The crash of equipment being overturned. Maya took the stairs with Morrison covering her six, moving with the fluid efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 times. The limp didn't slow her down. If anything, it had taught her to compensate, to be more precise with every movement. They reached the fourth-floor landing. Through the small window in the door, Maya could see chaos. 2 bodies on the floor, security guards, both down but breathing. A nurse huddled behind the station desk. And moving down the corridor toward the surgical recovery wing, for men in civilian clothes with concealed body armor and suppressed pistols. Not your everyday criminals. These were professionals. Maya held up 3 fingers, pointed to the left corridor. Then herself. Morrison nodded understanding. Classic room-clearing tactics. She would draw their attention while he took them from the flank. She pushed through the door. Federal agent. Morrison's voice boomed from behind her. Drop your weapons. The 4 men spun. 3 suppressors swung toward Morrison's position. Maya moved before they could acquire their target. The crash cart was 6 feet to her left. She grabbed it and shoved it with all her strength toward the nearest gunman. 300 pounds of medical equipment crashed into him, sending him sprawling. His suppressed pistol clattered across the tile. Maya was moving before he hit the ground. She scooped up the dropped weapon, Glock 19 with extended magazine and AC suppressor, and rolled behind the nurse's station as return fire chewed through the drywall above her head. Morrison engaged from his position, forcing 2 of the gunmen into cover. That left one with a clear line on Maya's position. He advanced with professional competence, angling for a kill shot. Maya's hand found the fire extinguisher mounted on the wall behind the desk. She yanked it free, popped the pin, and discharged it directly into the advancing gunman's face. The chemical cloud obscured his vision for exactly the 2 seconds she needed. She came up over the desk with the Glock, her hands finding the familiar grip, her stance automatic after 20 years of practice. Center mass. Double tap. The gunman went down. Morrison took his target with a well-placed shot. 2 down. 2 still active. The remaining gunmen retreated toward the recovery wing, using suppressive fire to cover their movement. They weren't running. They were repositioning. Still trying to reach Lieutenant Chun. Maya moved to Morrison's position, her tactical mind processing options. They're going for the patient. We need to get there first. Service corridor, Morrison said, pointing to a door marked authorized personnel only. Runs parallel to recovery. We can flank them. They moved. Maya's leg screamed protest, but she pushed through it. Pain was just information. You acknowledged it and moved on. The service corridor was narrow, filled with supply carts and the smell of institutional cleaning products. Maya led the way, weapon up, scanning for threats. Behind them, she could hear backup arriving. The wail of sirens, the thunder of boots on stairs. Help was coming, but it wouldn't arrive in time. They reached the recovery wing's side entrance. Through the small window, Maya could see the 2 remaining gunmen positioning outside Lieutenant Chen's room. One was attaching something to the door handle. Breaching charge. Maya didn't think. She burst through the door and fired. The gunman with the charge went down before he could trigger the detonator. The second man spun, bringing his weapon to bear. Morrison's shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Maya's follow-up put him on the ground. Silence fell over the corridor, broken only by the sound of Maya's controlled breathing and the approaching sirens. She lowered her weapon and looked at Morrison. Clear, she said. The door to Lieutenant Chen's room opened. A nurse stood there, eyes wide, trembling. Behind her, Maya could see the young operator, still unconscious, surrounded by monitors and 4 lines. Alive. Maya had saved him twice in one night. The hospital's lobby transformed into a military command center within 30 minutes. Maya sat on a bench near the emergency entrance, a blanket around her shoulders that someone had insisted she take, watching the controlled chaos unfold. FBI, ATF, military police. Everyone with an acronym and a badge had descended on St. Catherine's. The gunmen who survived were in custody. The ones who didn't were being processed by the medical examiner. Initial interrogations suggested they were foreign contractors hired to silence Lieutenant Chun before he could identify the individuals behind the Jordan ambush. Maya didn't care about the politics. She'd done her job, kept someone alive who deserved to be alive. That was enough. The automatic doors slid open, and a figure in navy dress uniform strode through. The crowd of law enforcement and hospital staff parted automatically. The man wore captain's eagles on his shoulders and the distinctive seal, trident insignia of the SEAL Team 3. His face was weathered, his bearing ramrod straight, and his eyes went directly to Maya. Captain James Reeves, former commander of 2nd Battalion. Maya's old CO. Maya stood, the blanket falling away. She didn't salute. She was retired, no longer required to, but old habits died hard. Her back straightened, her chin lifted. Senior Chief Petty Officer Chun. Reeves stopped 3 feet away, his voice carrying the command weight that came with decades of leadership. Or should I say, Ms. Chun, civilian janitor? Sir. Maya's voice was steady. Reeves looked at her for a long moment. Then, to the shock of everyone watching, he came to attention and saluted. Maya's hand came up automatically, returning the salute with the crisp precision that had been drilled into her at basic training 30 years ago. Agent Morrison briefed me on what happened here tonight, Reeves said, dropping his salute. You saved Lieutenant Chen's life. Twice. Then neutralized a hostile force that outgunned you 4-2. All while working as hospital custodial staff. I did what needed to be done, sir. You always did. Reeves's expression softened slightly. When you retired medical 3 years ago, we lost one of the best operators the regiment ever had. I understood why you left. The price you paid for your service. No one should have to carry that alone. He gestured to the assembled crowd, hospital staff, law enforcement, military personnel, all watching this exchange with rapt attention. These people need to understand who you are, what you've done for this country. Reeves raised his voice, addressing the room. Senior Chief Petty Officer Maya Chun served 23 years in the Naval Special Warfare Command with distinction. She earned her trident when women weren't supposed to be able to. She served on the front lines when women weren't supposed to be there. She saved lives that the Pentagon said couldn't be saved. He turned back to Maya. Want to know why we called her Valkyrie? In Norse mythology, Valkyries chose who lived and who died in battle. Maya Chun did the same. When she said you were going to make it, you made it. When she went into a hot zone to pull someone out, they came out alive. 47 confirmed saves. 47 SEALs who are alive today because of her. Maya's hands trembled slightly. She clasped them behind her back, military posture hiding civilian emotion. Operation Gothic Serpent, Kandahar, 2019, Reeves continued. Enemy ambush, 30-plus hostiles, our team pinned down in a kill zone. Maya was hit, shrapnel tore through her shoulder and knee. She should have been evacuated. Instead, she stayed in the fight for 6 hours, performing battlefield medicine under direct fire. She kept 5 critically wounded SEALs alive until the Quick Reaction Force arrived. All 5 survived. He paused, and his voice dropped. She received her 3rd Silver Star for that action. She also received the injury that ended her career and gave her that limp. The limp that some people, his eyes cut toward where Thornton stood, pale and silent, thought made her less capable. The crowd was absolutely silent. Senior Chief Petty Officer Chun, Reeves said formally. On behalf of the United States Navy and Naval Special Warfare Command, thank you for your continued service to this nation. Even in retirement, even working in obscurity, you answered the call when it mattered most. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small case. Inside was a medal, the Combat Medical Badge with 2 stars, denoting multiple combat deployments. You left this behind when you retired, Reeves said quietly. I've been holding on to it, hoping I'd see you again. Hoping you'd remember that what you are, who you are, doesn't change just because you're not wearing the uniform anymore. Maya took the case with hands that were no longer steady. She looked down at the medal, at the symbol of everything she'd been and everything she'd tried to leave behind. Sir, she managed. I don't know what to say. You never did talk much, Valkyrie. Reeves smiled. You just got the job done. Around them, SEALs who had arrived with Reeves came to attention. As one, they saluted Maya Chun. Not the janitor. Valkyrie. Dr. Richard Thornton approached slowly, like a man walking to his own execution. Maya watched him come, and for the first time since she'd started working at St. Catherine's, she didn't lower her eyes. Senior Chief Petty Officer Chun, Thornton began, then stopped. His usual confidence had evaporated, leaving behind only a man who understood exactly how badly he'd misjudged someone. I owe you an apology. Multiple apologies. For my treatment of you. His voice cracked slightly. For my complete failure to see what was right in front of me. Maya said nothing. Let him work for it. I called you incompetent. I mocked your limp. I was going to have you fired. Thornton's hands shook slightly. And all the while, you were. God, you saved Lieutenant Chen's life while I was standing there doing nothing. You saw what needed to be done and did it without hesitation. That's what a real doctor does. That's what I should have done. You're a good surgeon, doctor, Maya said quietly. I've watched you work. You have excellent technique, sound judgment in the OR. But trauma surgery isn't just about technique. It's about decisions made in seconds, about acting when you're not sure, about controlling chaos when everything is falling apart. She paused, and her voice hardened slightly. And it's about respect. For your team. For your patients. For the people who keep your hospital running, even if they're just pushing a mop. Thornton nodded, unable to meet her eyes. I know that now. And I know an apology isn't enough. But for what it's worth, I am truly sorry. Administrator Voss stepped forward, her expression carefully controlled. Ms. Chun, I want to personally apologize as well. And I want to make you an offer. We have an opening for a trauma consultant position. It would involve training our staff on emergency protocols, reviewing critical cases, serving as a liaison with military medical services. The pay would be. No, Maya's voice was gentle but firm. Voss blinked. We could negotiate the terms. I appreciate the offer, Administrator. But I came here for quiet. For peace. What happened tonight was necessary, but it doesn't mean I want to go back to that life. Captain Reeves spoke up. What if it wasn't full-time? What if you consulted when needed, but kept your autonomy? The regiment has a civilian contractor program for retired personnel. You could work on your terms, help when you wanted to help, and maintain your privacy the rest of the time. Maya considered this. It wasn't the same as disappearing into the background, but it also wasn't going back to war. It was something in between, a middle ground she hadn't known existed. Let me think about it, she said finally. Take all the time you need, Reeves said. But know this, the regiment doesn't forget its own. Retired or active, you're still one of us. You'll always have a place with us. 3 days later, Maya stood in the hospital's main conference room, surrounded by people who now looked at her with very different eyes. Lieutenant Marcus Chun had woken up that morning. His first words, once the breathing tube was removed, were to ask about the woman who had saved his life. When they told him it was Senior Chief Petty Officer Maya Chun, Valkyrie herself, he had cried. Now he sat in a wheelchair, still weak but alive, flanked by his unit and his family. Captain Reeves stood at the front of the room in full dress uniform. The hospital staff lined the walls. News cameras were set up in the back. The Pentagon had decided this story needed to be told, if only to honor a warrior who had served in silence for so long. Maya wore her custodial uniform. She'd refused to change into anything else. This was who she was now, and she wouldn't hide it. But pinned to her chest was the combat medical badge that Reeves had returned to her, a reminder of who she had been. Reeves called the room to attention. Today we honor a warrior who has exemplified the SEAL ethos in every aspect of her service. Senior Chief Petty Officer Maya Chun, call sign Valkyrie, served this nation with distinction for 23 years. Even in retirement, when called upon to act, she responded with the courage and skill that have always defined her. He picked up a small case from the table. It is my honor, on behalf of the United States Navy and Naval Special Warfare Command, to present Senior Chief Petty Officer Chun with the Distinguished Service Medal for her actions on the night of January 27th. The room erupted in applause. Maya stepped forward, and Reeves pinned the medal next to her combat medical badge. Then he stepped back and saluted. Every SEAL in the room came to attention and saluted in unison. Maya returned the salute, and for the first time in 3 years, She felt the weight of her past settle comfortably on her shoulders instead of crushing them. She had served. She had sacrificed. She had saved lives. And she had done it again when it mattered. Lieutenant Chen wheeled himself forward, tears streaming down his face. "Senior Chief Petty Officer," he said, his voice rough from the ventilator. "Thank you for my life. For my family. For everything." Maya knelt down so she was eye level with him. "You did the hard part, Lieutenant. You survived long enough for someone to help. That takes a special kind of strength. Will you?" He hesitated. "Will you visit? When I'm recovered. I'd like to hear some of your stories. Learn from you." Maya smiled. A real smile, the first and longer than she could remember. "I'd like that." The fallout from that night rippled through St. Catherine's for weeks. Dr. Thornton was not fired. Maya had specifically requested that he not be punished professionally for his treatment of her. But he had changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something quieter, humbler. He'd started attending the hospital's sensitivity training personally, and word around the staff room was that he'd completely overhauled how he interacted with non-medical personnel. Administrator Voss had implemented new policies, mandatory respect training for all staff, better integration between departments, and a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination based on job title or position. The 4 surviving attackers were in federal custody, facing charges of attempted murder, terrorism, and conspiracy. Their interrogations had led to the exposure of a larger network trying to silence witnesses to the Jordan ambush. 3 high-ranking foreign officials had been arrested. And Maya had accepted Captain Reeves's offer. She would serve as a civilian contractor for the regiment, providing training and consultation on trauma medicine and tactical casualty care. Part-time, on her terms, allowing her to maintain the quiet life she'd built while still using her skills to help those who needed them. She would also stay on at St. Catherine's, but not as a janitor. As a trauma consultant, working directly with the emergency department to improve their protocols for handling combat casualties and mass casualty incidents. It was a compromise, a bridge between the warrior she had been and the person she was trying to become. Lieutenant Chen was recovering ahead of schedule. The vascular repair had been successful, and the abdominal injuries were healing. He would return to duty in 6 months, and Maya had promised to be there when he got his medical clearance. On her last day as a janitor, Maya walked through the corridors of St. Catherine's one final time, pushing the familiar cleaning cart. She wasn't invisible anymore. Nurses greeted her by name. Doctors nodded with genuine respect. Patients who had heard her story asked for autographs and photos. It was strange being seen, but not entirely unpleasant. As she passed the trophy case where she used to catch glimpses of her reflection, she stopped. Someone had added a new plaque overnight. It read, "In honor of Senior Chief Petty Officer Maya Chun, U.S. Navy, Ret. Call sign, Valkyrie. For exemplary service to our nation and our hospital. Never judge a book by its cover. Never underestimate the quiet ones." Maya smiled. Then she left the cleaning cart in the storage closet for the last time and walked out through the main entrance. Captain Reeves was waiting outside in a black SUV, engine running. He rolled down the window as she approached. "Ready for your first consultation, Senior Chief Petty Officer?" Maya looked back at the hospital one last time. Then at the SUV. Then at the metal pin to her jacket. "The only easy day was yesterday," she said, and climbed in. The SUV pulled away from the curb. Maya Chun, janitor, Senior Chief Petty Officer, Valkyrie, was heading back to work. Not to war. To service. On her own terms. With her dignity restored and her purpose renewed. Some warriors never truly retire. They just find new battles to fight. Maya Chen's story reminds us that true strength often comes in the quietest packages. The people we overlook, the individuals we underestimate, the workers we take for granted. Any one of them might be carrying a past that would humble us. More importantly, they might be carrying skills and courage that could save our lives. Our veterans walk among us every day, many of them invisible by choice, serving in roles that seem ordinary but approaching them with extraordinary discipline and honor. They've given everything for this country, and sometimes the price they've paid is the ability to simply exist in the world they fought to protect. If this story moved you, if Maya's journey from decorated warrior to invisible janitor to recognized hero resonated with you, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. It helps us share more incredible stories like this one and ensures that the sacrifices of our veterans are never forgotten. Do you think Maya was right to hide her military past and seek a quiet life? Or should she have been open about who she was from the beginning? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love hearing your perspectives on these stories. And if you're not part of the family yet, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. We post new stories every week about the hidden heroes among us, the quiet professionals who've served in silence and continue to serve in ways we never see. Next week, we have a story about a former Navy SEAL working as a high school teacher who has to protect his students when armed intruders take over the school. You absolutely don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and remember, respect the badge, honor the service, and never underestimate the quiet ones. Disclaimer: the stories shared on this channel are fictional and created purely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real events, people, or places is purely coincidental. While we strive for accuracy in depicting military procedures and medical protocols, this story is a work of fiction designed to honor the service and sacrifice of our veterans.